welcome back to another episode of the Audible. I am your host, Jake Williams, doing it solo again this week, but don't worry, Derek will be back, if not next week, the week after. He's coming back is the point. If you don't like me sitting here screaming into the ether about football, then don't worry about it, because he'll be back and he'll reel me in, he'll have some takes, and we'll have a good time. So Derek will be coming back soon. We have a lot to get into. Before I do, I want to point out something. I spent 10 minutes last week telling people to not freak out about the situation with Nebraska and Scott Frost. I won't spend 10 minutes on this. I'm simply going to say this. Saturday changes nothing. Last Saturday against Michigan absolutely changes nothing. This team has a lot of talent, but they are young. Nebraska has 50 new players, 38 freshmen. It's going to take time. You have to be patient. Patience. The sun will come out tomorrow. That's all I'm going to say about it. And you know what? I think we'll have a better discussion. I think Nebraska can beat Purdue. Purdue looks really good. They looked good last week against Boston College. They've looked good against Northwestern. But the Big Ten West is just one of those divisions where I don't know which team is going to go up. I don't know which team is going to play really well. It's a wait-and-see kind of thing. We'll find out tomorrow, I believe at 11. I'm not quite sure on the kickoff. I should figure that out. It is college football, and I want to talk about Kelly Bryant, the Clemson quarterback who was their starter last year, led them to the college football playoff, where they got decimated by Alabama. He is transferring. He said that being demoted is a disgrace, and he is leaving the school. I have some mixed feelings about this. At one side of the coin, I understand where he's coming from, because Kelly Bryant was your starter last year, was pretty competent, wasn't crazy good, wasn't Jalen Hurts or Tua from Alabama. He wasn't that level. He wasn't a Mike Vick type player. He was dynamic. He's athletic. He can make plays with his arm. He can make plays with his legs. I think he's a good athlete. But to leave his team in this situation, I think is a little silly. Again, we could go back to the facts that he was their quarterback last year. He led them to the playoff. But a team like Clemson has so much talent on so many positions, offense and defense. It's almost hard not to win a lot of football games and be undefeated, especially in the ACC. The ACC is not a strong conference at all. You've got Miami, you've got Clemson, and that's about it. NC State, maybe. Florida State's, man, I've talked about them last week too. Florida State's in a real bad spot right now. So it's hard not to win a lot of games in the ACC with Clemson's level of talent. Clemson is consistently a top 4 playoff contender. Every single year. Since the inception of the playoff, they've been in it. They've been that team lurking around. So to be angry about that situation, understandable as a starting quarterback to lose your job. That's a little bit understandable. But also, it is Clemson we're talking about. This isn't a team that you need great quarterback play. Now, that's the cliche is every team needs to have a great quarterback. You need great quarterback play. I don't know if that's true because Alabama has won championships with a game manager at quarterback. LSU has won championships without quarterbacks. When's the last time you thought of an LSU quarterback other than maybe Jamarcus Russell? He's the only LSU quarterback that I can think of. So Kelly Bryant transferring, I don't want to come off saying that he's a whiny baby because I don't think he is. I don't. I just think he's got to understand the situation that he's in. I think he'll probably go to a good school. But what happened to football players where they've stopped caring about their team? And this is college we're talking about with Kelly Bryant. This isn't a holdout like Le'Veon Bell. This isn't trying to make money. This is he got replaced. Now, you could argue that it is about money because it hurts his draft stock, but I'm sorry, Kelly Bryant is not Deshaun Watson. He's just not. Deshaun Watson was a special player, but Kelly Bryant, nothing about his play last year stood out to me and said, he's the next Deshaun Watson. Or, man, Clemson is such a better team because Kelly Bryant. No, it was because of their defense. It's because of their skill players. Clemson has a lot of athletes on their team. It wasn't just Kelly Bryant. And it's not going to be just Kelly Bryant wherever he goes. I'm not discrediting his ability. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a good athlete. I can't stress that enough in this segment that I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback. Or that some team should go after him and use him because he is a good quarterback. He's not bad. But I think it wasn't a good move on his part to leave a team like Clemson. Because if you're a backup at Clemson, you're a backup at Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Washington, Georgia. These type of teams, if you're a backup just there, you are still in a great situation because anything happens to that starting quarterback, you have a very talented team that you could take to a championship. Kelly Bryant is a situational quarterback. He got put with a really good team, and he had enough talent into the playoff, into winning an ACC championship. And the one game they lost, people could argue, is because he was injured. But I don't think Kelly Bryant transferring is a good decision. Simply because you don't know, A, where you're going to end up. B, you don't know the quarterback situation next week at Clemson. He could have got put back in. Because clearly Dabo wasn't making up his mind. If we're almost to October, which is the meat of conference play, and he still hasn't made a decision on quarterbacks, there's still a good situation for you. I hope he ends up at a good school. I hope he ends up on his feet. I do think he's a good quarterback. And I think he will continue to be successful. I just don't know about that decision. So I mentioned that we're coming up on October, and it's my favorite month, not just because it's my birthday and have Halloween, but it's my favorite month because you decide then who are the pretenders, who are the contenders, who are the teams that, because of their cupcake schedule, they were able to win a few games versus a team that doesn't matter who they play, you line them up, they're going to crush them. This is a great time of year. We're at the very end of September. Now, we've already had a few good conference matchups. I mean, the season started with Purdue against Northwestern, which was a fun, good Big Ten West matchup. Wisconsin and Iowa pretty much just decided the Big Ten West last week in a very good football game. But this is why it's time to watch football, because now you're going to start to see things. You're going to see upsets, and you're going to see teams just beat up on each other. I have a few games, for my games to watch up on loudandopinionated.com, and I will make the predictions for those games here. There's a few games that are conference clashes that are going to have severe impact on the landscape of not only their conference, but college football. And I'm looking down the list of teams, and I'm looking at certain teams, and I'm thinking they're definitely a contender. And when you look at teams in the top 10, and you think, okay, who at the end of the year, this top 10, who's going to change? Who's going to move? What are the movers and shakers here? Who's the contenders? Who's the pretenders? I look at the top 10. I look at a team like Notre Dame. I don't see Notre Dame making it to a playoff. They have not, other than their first game, they have not shown anything to me that they would be in the top 4. Other than their first game against Michigan, which I saw bright as day how good Michigan really is last week. Despite that first win against Michigan, nothing has really stuck out to me. They had to, fight to beat Ball State. They took care of Wake Forest, but, Wake Forest has never been impressive to me. They're a middle-of-the-road ACC team. There's nothing impressive there. So when I look at a team like Notre Dame, I don't see them going to the Final Four. When I look at teams like Penn State, I think despite their struggles against Appalachian State, a little bit of Illinois, they got it together and, showed their depth. But a team like Penn State at number 9, I could see them definitely going to the top 4. If they win this weekend against Ohio State, that's absolutely going to change the landscape and put them in that position. If they beat Ohio State and Michigan this year, maybe just the one loss, I don't see a reason to keep them out of the college football playoff. Because if, say, they lose one game down the road and they still beat Ohio State and Michigan, they're going to the Big Ten championship. They're going to win. I don't think there's anybody in the West. Wisconsin is the only team in the West that I think could compete with Penn State. Wisconsin's already lost to BYU. So who knows with that? I look at Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is very much a team that is a contender. They had the scare last week against Army, but watching them play and how that offense runs under Kyler Murphy and how Lincoln Riley runs that offense, it's really hard to pick against them in any scenario going down the schedule. They're obviously going to have challenges against Texas, TCU, West Virginia. They're going to have those challenges. They have them every year. But I think it's hard to pick against them. I could see them. I think they're a legit contender. So if you're keeping score at home, of the top 10, I have 2 contenders in Penn State and Oklahoma and 1 pretender in Notre Dame. I think Stanford showed a lot last week against Oregon, able to come back down 17 points, found a way to win that game in overtime. I think that's impressive, but I don't think Stanford, I think they're a pretender. I think that they don't make it to the playoff. I think they lose to Washington and they don't win the Pac-12. Now, saying a team is a pretender in this context does not say that they are actually bad. I'm not saying that. I just like pretender, contender. I like those 2 words together. I'm not saying that Stanford is a bad team. I'm not saying Notre Dame is a bad team. I'm just saying there has to be 4 teams, and those 2 I don't see being in that Final Four. Ohio State, very much a playoff contender, and it's the same scenario. I think any team in the Big Ten East, other than maybe Michigan and Michigan State because of their early losses, but then again, those early losses could end up being the deciding factor in the top 4, because who knows, Arizona State could have a great season. Maybe Notre Dame keeps having a good season. That can help Michigan. But of the 4 teams that I think have the chance to win the Big Ten East, we say every year, it's Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. If any of those teams win the Big Ten East and get to the Big Ten championship and win, I think it's really hard to keep them out of the top 4. Just because the Big Ten has been so strong the last few years. It's really hard to keep them out. And I think a team like Ohio State or Penn State has a legitimate chance of doing that. It's this game this weekend, I wish it wasn't played so early in the season for them. This is big game implications. This is a November night game type situation that they should be playing here. Alabama is the best team in the country without question. When I look at the definition of the contender, are you kidding me? It is Alabama and everybody else. It is a huge cliff than everybody else. And that is saying a lot, because Clemson is a very good team. Ohio State's a very good team. Georgia is a very good team. Every team behind them in the top 10 are really good, solid teams, but they are just so much better. It is Alabama, a giant cliff, everybody else. That's just the way it is. They are pinnacle of college football excellence. And it's going to be real hard for anybody to come close to beating them. And believe me, it is the worst feeling on the planet, because I absolutely hate Alabama. I have not minced words about how I feel about Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. You know what the big reason is? It's success. When you're that damn good for as long as they've been, you're going to be envious and you're going to hate them. Everybody hates dynasties. Everybody hates excellence when it's not their team. That's what happens. Clemson, very much a contender. Georgia, absolutely. The only thing that can stop Alabama, I think, this year is Georgia. And even then, they'll probably rematch them again in the top 4. That's it. But yes, this is my favorite time of year. October, leading into November. So we're really getting to the meat of the schedule. We really separate the men from the boys, the pretenders from the contenders, any other cliche you can think of. That's what happens in October. So let's transition it into the NFL before I get into my predictions. I want to talk about two things in the NFL. One of them is this question of what's going on in New England. If you said to me after, let's just say for the sake of argument, after the Super Bowl, you tell me Julian Edelman will be suspended for the Patriots, they'll acquire Josh Gordon, and they will be tied in their division with the Bills and the Jets at 1-2, looking at 3-0 Miami Dolphins. I would have said, first of all, how are you traveling through time like this? It's impressive. And then secondly, you're full of shit. But here we are. 2018's been a weird year. The New England Patriots are 1-2 and have not looked good at all in those two losses. They have looked just mediocre at best. They lost 26-10 to the Lions on Sunday Night Football. Now, the Jaguars are actually a good team. That first loss against the Jaguars, they're not a bad team. Jaguars are good. Look out for Jacksonville, which I'm going to say this every single time I turn on the mic. I said this years ago with the moves they were making and building the team through the draft. I said the Jacksonville Jaguars were a playoff team. I will stand by that. I will dig up old episodes of this show and show you the truth. So the question is, are the Patriots in trouble? If this were any other organization, if this weren't Tom Brady, if this weren't Bill Belichick, absolutely I would say this team is in trouble. It's really hard to bet against those two. I have been a lifelong Patriot. Someone has coined that term somewhere, and I will give you some money. But if not, I'm claiming Patriot. I feel like that's a Twitter thing. Point is, I'm a Patriot. I have never liked the New England Patriots. Much like I've never liked Alabama, I can't deny their greatness. 5 Super Bowls? You can't deny that greatness. So that's why I don't think New England's in trouble. When a team has been to the playoffs as much as they have, when a team has won 5 Super Bowls, they've been to 8 Super Bowls. And you have arguably the greatest quarterback to play the game on your side. You have the best coach in NFL history on your side. It's hard for me to pick against you. I will this week. Spoilers. But it's hard for me not to believe that they're somehow going to make the playoffs. Will it be a wild card? Maybe. But I don't think that the Patriots are a team that I don't want to think about that, because this is just a world that I don't think exists where New England isn't dominating the East. Makes me kind of question reality a little bit. As a lifelong Patriot, I'm into it. I want that to happen. I just don't think it will. I mean, you look at New England, and they have had some legitimate controversy this past year. The Jimmy G trade, the book coming out about Belichick, and then the whole divorce with Tom Brady, Belichick's battles with Robert Kraft. There's so much drama and turmoil, and even through all that, they still went to a Super Bowl last year. And you take away a fumble, probably could have won. So much like, what I've said with Scott Frost in Nebraska, the sky's not falling for New England. But there's 13 games left on their schedule. A 1-2 start is not the end of the world. I don't think the Patriots are in trouble. The Patriots are never in trouble because who they have under center and who they have coaching them, they are never not going to be a good football team. Even if they go 8-8 or 9-7, I know Patriots fans are going to think that's a loss of a season. I got a news flash for you. As a Buccaneers fan, I would kill for an 8-8 season or a 9-7 season. Consistently. We got one a couple years ago. So no, the Patriots are not in trouble. So the last thing I want to talk about in the NFL, obviously it's on everybody's mind, the roughing the passer penalty. There were 4 of them in the Monday night game between the Bucs and the Steelers. Clay Matthews can't tackle anybody because he'll get a penalty. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Everybody's been talking about this. I'm just going to make this a quick segment and say this. What do you want them to do? Because you're putting them in a situation that's impossible. Booger McFarland said this on Monday Night Football. These are the best athletes in the world, and they're still not able to do this. So maybe it's that they're physically impossible to do. Gerald McCoy gets flagged, hits the guy, doesn't drive him to the ground, tries to even help him up, still gets a penalty. Jason Pierre-Paul touches Ben Roethlisberger, it's a penalty. I am completely 100% behind protecting players. I will never be upset about protecting the safety of any football player, whether it's a kicker or a quarterback, anybody. And in this modern climate, you have to act that way. You have to protect the players and you have to take precautions. But at some point, when are we going to play football and not do stuff like that? Changes absolutely 100% have to be made. They talked about how they're meeting with the rules committee. I don't think anything gets done this season. I think any changes get made next season. But you have to sit down and ask yourself, is this physically possible for these people to not do that? Quarterbacks are going to be in harm's way. And I get the business model behind it. When you look at last year and you look at the quarterbacks that are injured and there wasn't as good at football play, and there's that whole thing of better ratings because better quarterbacking. I don't think that is not true, but that is the risk of the sport. That is what makes guys like me watch the sport, is the unpredictability of the sport. Otherwise, you're hedging your bets. You're going to make it harder and harder to get guys to play defense. You're going to make it harder and harder for kids at a young age to say, I want to be Clay Matthews. I want to be the next Khalil Mack. It's going to be hard for those players because you're going to throw off their technique. You're going to throw off their ability to get to that level. Nobody's going to want to be an NFL defensive player because you can't defend the pass without getting a penalty. You can't hit the quarterback without getting a penalty. So what is a defender to do? You might as well change it, make it 7-on-7 or flag football. Keep in mind, I want safety too, but you also have to understand the situation of the game, and you have to understand the situation of the sport. So that's it for those topics. Time to jump into my picks of the week. Now, the college football section is always shorter than the NFL section because I do all the NFL games. Only pick a handful of college football. It's what it is. Get over it. So the first three are what games to watch. So again, go to loudandopinionated.com. Check out that article. So first up on the docket, West Virginia travels to Lubbock to take on the Red Raiders. This is a top 25 matchup, which is something I totally saw coming. Number 12, West Virginia taking on number 25, Texas Tech. Will Grier, Heisman hopeful. This is your stereotypical Big 12 matchup. These are two teams that like to line up and just throw the football all over the place. And I'm telling you, it's one of the funnest conferences to watch. It really is. I think West Virginia wins this one, continues to be undefeated. And I really want to sing the song, but I'm not going to. Take me home, country road. Anyway, Stanford taking on Notre Dame in the rivalry because every time somebody plays Notre Dame, it has to be some bullshit rivalry. Stanford taking on Notre Dame. Now, it's a top 10 matchup. If you're counting at home and paying attention, these are two pretenders, according to me, playing each other. Stanford, I think, wins this one on the back of Bryce Love. I think he runs up and down the field. It's going to be a short game because both teams really do love to run the football. Again, this stuff is on the website, loudandopinionated.com. Big Ten East in the balance, possible playoff spot between Ohio State and Penn State. The last few years, this has been the best games of the season. Both teams are great. I think Ohio State sneaks by the Nittany Lions. I wouldn't be surprised if they get 3 seconds left, they kick a field goal and win the football game. It's going to be a whiteout, and those are always tough. Tennessee taking on Georgia. Now, why is this on my picks? Because, as some of you know, there's a few teams that I go out of my way to mock and make fun of. I've relented on Texas A&M, but it usually was Texas A&M. But I did a whole Jake's Takes back when I did those on Tennessee a few years ago, and I remain to do that. Tennessee will always be mediocre. I want people to understand that. Good old Rocky Top, those days have passed. Tennessee is much like Nebraska, haven't been relevant since 97 when Peyton Manning played there. Georgia just crushes Tennessee. Are you kidding? Now it's on to the homer picks. Iowa State goes to Fort Worth to take on TCU. Now TCU started hot, 2-0, and despite a bad third quarter, could have beat Ohio State. They hung with the Buckeyes for a while, and then shockingly were upset on the road against Texas. I think they rebounded. They beat the Cyclones. Ashley doesn't listen to this, so I won't get in trouble. The last pick is the second homer pick, Nebraska taking on Purdue. Now, every single week I have picked Nebraska to win. And I said last week that, a lot of the fan base is going to probably say that Scott Frost's back against the wall against Michigan. I think it was, and they obviously didn't succeed. It was a brutal game. Purdue is not Michigan. It's in Lincoln. I'm taking the Huskers. I got to do it. I have no choice. So, yeah, those are my college football picks for this week. Let me know what you think. If I'm right, if I'm crazy, I'd love to hear back from you. So now moving on to the NFL. It's time for the NFL predictions. All 16 games, or whatever. First up, Bills taking on the Packers. I'm taking Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. It's hard to pick against the Pack, especially at Lambeau. Now, I said the Patriots aren't in trouble, not to worry about it, but they are playing the Dolphins, and the Dolphins are undefeated. They go to 4-0. I think the Dolphins take a commanding lead in the NFC East. They beat the Patriots. Both teams trying to rebound from a loss here. Bengals taking on the Falcons. Andy Dalton versus Matt Ryan. AJ Green versus Julio Jones. A lot of points, much like last week. I'm starting Matt Ryan again. The one week I don't start him, he puts up 40 points. I've learned my lesson. Falcons win. Eagles taking on the Titans. I don't buy the Titans being a good team at all. I still very high on the Eagles. I think the Eagles are one of the best teams in the NFC. They beat the Titans. Seahawks against Cardinals. Ugh, goodness. You talk about a boring NFC West matchup. I'm taking the Seahawks in that one. Barely. It's going to be like a 12-9 or 15-12 type game. A lot of field goals. Both teams struggle offensively. 49ers against the Chargers. Now, if Jimmy G wasn't hurt, I would have taken the Niners. I like the Niners with Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's hurt. He's going to be out all season, so I'm taking the Chargers. Texans against Colts. I think Andrew Luck steers the ship with the Colts. I think the Colts are going to come around. Something tells me that I can't bet against Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. Taking them in this one. Bucks taking on the Bears. Bears are looking really good. 2-1 after their opening loss to the Packers. Khalil Mack is showing he is worth every bit of money that you have. Good job, John Gruden. I like Tampa Bay's chances. I think Fitzpatrick starts this game. I don't know if he's going to be the quarterback the whole game, but I think he starts the game, and I think the Bucks squeak by the Bears. Very close one. Lions taking on the Cowboys. I like the Lions in this one. I think the Cowboys need to figure out what they want to do offensively and figure out, hey, Dak, do you want to throw the football more than 9 yards? That would be great. Jets taking on the Jags. I got the Jags, man. Riding that Jaguar bandwagon. Browns versus the Raiders. So the 1-1-1 Browns taking on the 0-3 Raiders. I like the Raiders in this one. They get their first win. Saints taking on the Giants. Again, potential for a lot of points. I don't buy the Saints defense. I've never bought the Saints defense. It's all about Drew Brees and that offense. And I think Drew Brees outplays Eli Manning. Saints win that one. Sunday Night Football. Ravens versus the Steelers. Now, I know the Steelers beat my Buccaneers on Monday Night Football, but that was not because the Steelers beat the Buccaneers. That's because the Buccaneers gave up the ball 4 of their last 5 first-half possessions. And it's hard to win a football game when you have that many turnovers. The Ravens, come on now. And on Monday Night Football, it is the AFC West showdown between the Chiefs and the Broncos. Chiefs win huge. Patrick Mahomes, he's going to put up 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. He's going to have one of those kind of games. Chiefs are going to crush the Broncos. Broncos have not been good since Super Bowl 50. It's just the facts, people. So thank you for listening to another episode of the Audible. Like I said, Derek should be back next week, if not the week after that. So it won't just be me screaming into the void for half an hour. I mean, if you like that, thank you for keeping to listen to that and paying attention to that. But thank you so much. You can find us on social media, at Loud Opinionated on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. You can check out some of our videos on YouTube. Check out College Football Hangover. It's the video I do every Monday. It's a college football recap show. I think you'll like it. It's not like this. It's choppy. It's fast. It's for the kids with ADD. It's all over the place. It's good stuff. Thank you so much, guys. You can find this show on iTunes, on our website, loudandopinionated.com, pretty much anywhere you get podcasts. And if you go to listen to this show at loudandopinionated.com, I think you should check it out. There's a ton of articles on the blog section. I've written a few. My good friend John Sparks, he's written a few. And there's just a lot of content there. It's not just football related. There's video game articles. There's movie articles, TV articles. Like, there's any form of something. That's kind of the point of Loud and Opinionated, you know? It's something for someone somewhere at some time, right? So, yeah, check that out and have a great day.